Thank you. I kind of think I'm going to start today by telling you a story of what happened in my genealogy life this week that can happen in any of our lives. So I'm going to go ahead and start with share screen and click on the button so that you now are seeing my screen. Are you all seeing my screen?
I think it's yours.
Okay. This week, I opened up Family Search one day, and over here where there's the little bell at the top of the square, I clicked on it, and one of the comments, or maybe it was this one, I guess it's this one, which looks like a letter. And here is a letter from somebody named Keith Allen McDonald. And I have no clue who he is. He has no clue who I am, but he had a question for me, and it does. Here it is over here, his first question. But so he said, why do you think that Joseph Van Dyke is the father? I've never been able to prove it. And I wrote him back and said, well, this and this and this and this. And he wrote back and said, well, I'd like to know if we really are even related. Have you ever had your DNA done? And I said, yes, I've had it done. And he wrote back and said, I've looked for you and I can't find you on Ancestry as having had your DNA done. Anyway, he posed a lot of questions and I answered them each in a separate paragraph. But now I'm all on fire to work some more on this line and to solidify my sources and my information. And I think it's going to be fun to work with somebody else who is trying to do the same. And so that happened because I looked at this little icon that looks like a letter, and he had written me. And one of the things I said is, this is my email that I use for family history. Maybe you'd rather answer me on that, and we'll see what he does. But I think that between the two of us, we can share information, and it'll be a good thing for both of us. Something I have noticed that I do is I am sloppier than I ever was before about keeping notes about what I found in family history and where. You know, if I look something up, I don't always write down what it was I looked it up. And sometimes I just remember it and sometimes I don't so well. And so, and that is something that I teach everybody. Sure, you need to keep a list of all the sources that you look in. But I've gotten lazy about that. And so as I work on through some of these things with him, I think I'm gonna remind myself how important it is to keep records. And when we're finished, I'll have the records. Now, how do I keep my records? I used to keep a legal-sized manila envelope on every married couple. And I kept it in my file cabinet that's right there. And then my drawer that I kept them in got to where it was overflowing. And so then I thought, oh, I'm going to try binders. Well, I tried binders, and really, for me, binders don't work as well. But I do have some binders. But the problem is that I tend to have one binder for this year's research and another binder for next year's research, instead of having one envelope for all of Catherine Ann Van Dyke. And so I'm going to try to do better at that. I think I'm going to clear out my file drawer to make room for manila envelopes on the files, on the families that I'm working for, so that I have a folder for each married couple. But anyway, I am excited this next week, and was excited today, but didn't have too much time to work on these things that were brought to my attention this week. I think that when you have somebody else that gets you excited about doing something, it kind of keeps you excited. Otherwise, sometimes it's easy to get for genealogy to hit the back burner and then the further back burner and then to be off the stove altogether. So being in contact with somebody about something is kind of a good way to keep going. Okay, now what is our lesson about today? Does anybody remember what we're supposed to talk about? And are you interested in it for any particular reason?
Yeah, we're supposed to go picking cherries.
We're supposed to what?
Supposed to go picking cherries today, right?
Well, if cherries are low-lying fruit that's easy to get to, you're right. Okay.
All right.
Let's start out with doing the easy things and then progress to the hard things. I think that that's a very good strategy. I used to be very, very systematic, and I would say, don't even worry about who your grandparents are until you've got everything possible on the family group sheet about your parents. But with all of the computer resources we have, that isn't the most efficient approach anymore. I'm going to try to move this over so I can click on this thing. Okay. So tonight's lesson is called Easy Steps in Family History and Finding the Low-Lying Fruit. So let's start by using an example of my ancestor, Lorenzo Dow Wade. He is the person on this family situation that this relative brought up. He is the one that I have researched the most. So I have pulled him up in Family Search. And I noticed that he has one hint that needs to be addressed. And so that is a good place to begin. I also know that when I get Family Search working with Ancestry, that it is more efficient. So let me go ahead and open up Ancestry at the same time. And in Ancestry, I'm going to go to my tree that, and it says, I'm going to choose View Tree. And the options it's going to give me is, it's going to say, which tree do you want to choose? And I'm going to choose Nancy for Ancestry, because that is the tree that has most of my family research in, and definitely my family research for this line of my family. And so I'm going to click on Lorenzo Dow Wade on this tree, and I'm going to click on Profile. So now up here in the top, I have two tabs. I have one tab for the same person in Ancestry that I have in Family Search. And over here, I have the little green tree with the square leaves. Now, somebody say, just so we have more participation from the class, what does this little green tree on Ancestry mean? Do you remember? It means that,
It's a cherry tree.
Yes, John.
No, I just said it's a cherry tree.
Okay, we can call it a cherry tree. It is the Family Search logo, and because it's there, it means that this person is on, it means that I have an account with Ancestry through the church. Now, if I click on that tree, and it's going to give me a comparison, and I can see if this person is on my tree in Family Search, in Ancestry, and if they are also in Family Search. And so here it says, this is the person in your Ancestry tree, and it tells me this much about him. And then it says, do you think that Lorenzo Dow Wade, and it gives me his ID number in Family Search, who was born in 1810 in Kentucky in the United States and died the 8th of September in 1871. Now I'm going to come over here and look on my person in the Ancestry tree, and I'm going to say, yes, I think that's the same person. And as I click down these more, I will recognize more people. And since I've researched him already, I know definitely that that's him. So I'm going to click on his name, and now it's going to pull up. This is what's in Family Search, And this is what's in Ancestry. If I think they're the same person, I should connect them. And I think they're the same person. If this person was not in Family Search, I could click on the gray button and follow through the steps and I could add them. But so now I'm going to click on Connect Person. And now if we look at this little cherry tree or Family Search tree, it's going to have a blue check mark. And that's going to tell me that this person is in Ancestry, on my tree in Ancestry, and it is also in Family Search. Now it's going to give me these other options. I can view this person on Family Search. I can add relatives from Family Search. I can disconnect the person from Family Search. If this person needed temple work, it would say that I could add that. But those aren't the things that I'm most interested in right now. Right now, what I want to do is compare the facts in Ancestry with the details in Family Search. And I have with me a notebook and a piece of paper, always at my desk when I'm doing family history. And so I'm going to go through and look at some of these details and see if I'm reminded of anything or if there's anything there that I didn't know. And I pretty much did that last night and this morning, but briefly, but I did it. Then on Ancestry, it's going to be called Facts instead of Life Story. Now, here is something very interesting. In Family Search, there was one blue hint. In Ancestry, there are 15 hints. So let's look through the sources, and we've already kind of gone through the details. Now let's go through the sources. This says that he is in the 1860 census. He's in Illinois marriages. He's in the 1840 census. He's in the GEDCOM file that I made here. Another GEDCOM file, that might be one I made, it might be one somebody else made, and more marriage records. So those are the sources that I have here, plus 15 hints. So let's go over here and see what we've got. Here we've got one hint, and it's about marriages. And as I was going through details, I reminded myself that he was married 3 times, and I have copies of all of those marriage records, and they all happened in Jasper County, Illinois. His first wife died, leaving him a widower with small children. He remarried my ancestor. She had 3 children and died, leaving him a widow with even more small children. He married the first wife's sister, and together they lived a long life and raised all of the children. So I kind of, as I went to the bottom of the details page, I could kind of remind myself of those things and remind myself of him. Now, the other one had about 5 sources. Here on this page, he has 13 sources. He has the marriage records, and it's interesting because it's been added different ways. The marriage records are listed about 6 different times, even though there's only 3 of them. There's a government land record source. There is an 1840 census source. There is an 1850 census source, an 1860, an 1870, another land purchase. So that's what's available for me on Family Search, which is a lot more information about him than what's on Ancestry. But Ancestry has all these extra hints. So if I come back up to the top of his page and go back to details so that I can see the hints, it's another copy of the same marriages that I've been through before. So right now I'm not going to take the time to do that, although I will take the time to make sure of that when we're not in the middle of a lesson to make sure I'm not missing something. But I'm going to go through these other 15 hints and see what I find out. Now, as we remember, one of the differences between the main difference between Ancestry and Family, well, not the only main difference, an important difference is that In Ancestry, everybody puts their information in their own tree. And in Family Search, everybody that puts in information about Lorenzo Dow is going to put it in the same tree. So that's the important thing I want to remember as I look through these lists. Now here I have, it says that there are 3 people that have made a tree that includes Lorenzo Dow Wade and made it public. Now, if they wanted to keep it private, and there's lots of reasons for doing that, then it wouldn't show up to me. It would just, only the ones that have been made public show to me. But, so I want to see who those people are and what they know about him. So I am going to click on Review. And the first person is the Colleen Thompson family tree. And so now I'm comparing just within Ancestry. Right now I am not comparing between the 2 sites. I'm just comparing my tree, which is on the right-hand side, and Colleen's tree, which is on the left-hand side. And it says that it's different on her tree and my tree because she only knows that he died in Missouri, and I know that he died in Johnson County, Missouri. It has his father, the same, and 3 spouses, which I knew, and it lists the children under each spouse. And so that's pretty much the same information on each of those sides. So really, I think that, the other thing I want to look is how many sources she's got. She's got 17 sources, and I only have 10. And she has 3 photos, and I don't have any. Gee, let's look and see what kind of photos she's got. It's not going to let me click on it right now. So now I'm going to go on down to the next person. And this is called Black Sykes family tree. And it looks like they did it mostly for DNA. And let's see. Birth is the same. Death is the same except for the county. She has photos and records and sources. And I only have sources. And she has the same spouses listed. I have the same spouses listed. And it looks like maybe I know a few more death dates on the children than she does, but basically that's the same. So I can compare it in more detail later, but pretty much it's the same. And here is Irvin Kramer. Oh, that's the name of his tree, but it's Jeff Irvin that put it on. Now, he knows also that it's Johnson County, Missouri, and he only has 4 sources and 3 records and 2 photos. But look, he's missing a lot of children, and he's missing 1 spouse. So I am going to tell myself, the other 2 knew about the same things I did, but this guy doesn't know as much as I did. So I'm not going to put anywhere near as much value into what he says as into the other 2. So those were the first 2 trees that I found. Now I'm going to go see what the other hints are about.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you tell whether or not any of those on Ancestry that you just showed, any of the work that's been done on by those lines? The ordinance work?
I only if they put it in, and they would have only put it in if they are also linked up here by the cherry tree to Family Search. Okay. Ancestry doesn't on its own, does not have a spot to put temple work that I'm aware of. Am I right on that, Diane? Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Now, because I knew that Lorenzo Dow, when he was a young adult, moved to Jasper, he traveled west and moved to Jasper County, Illinois. And I knew that that was in the early days, in the first half of the 1800s. So I knew that that was the part of the United States where people usually got their land, either by getting it given to them by the federal government, because they were in a pension agreement of some sort from the military, or else it was a special land act that Congress made that said that you could buy land in developing states for $1.25 an acre. So I wanted to know if, or I think it's very likely that these patent records are going to be when he bought land or acquired land from the federal government in this beginning pioneer territory. And so I'm going to click on it and see what it tells me. And over here on this other side, it tells me, and I'm going to click on view because I want more detail. I want to be able to read it easier. And it says, the United States of America, to all to whom these presents come, greeting. And it says Lorenzo Dow Wade of Jasper County, Illinois, in the Palestine Land Office, under the grant of the legislature of the United States, is buying this certain area of land in Illinois, and it describes it the way that land is described. And it says that this deed is being signed by Martin Van Buren, President of the United States, and it gives the date. So I say to myself, yes, he did move to the new state of Illinois in the earlier days, and he did get land from the government, and I can be pretty sure that he arrived there at approximately, more or less, we're down here at the bottom where it says 1839. So most people don't go to the land office and buy land until they've moved there. So he went to the land office and determined to buy that land, and this is his land record. Now, there's two things I should do with this land record. One is I should put it in my manila folder in the space I'm going to make in my file cabinet, and list it on the list of things, the places of where I searched. And I can do that by clicking on this printer icon and making a printed copy of it. But I should also attach it to my source in Ancestry and my source in Family Search. So if I go back a bit, and sometimes it takes a minute after I click before it responds, and it went way far back, didn't it? So I'm going to go back again through the routines to get Lorenzo. And so this is that, let's look and see if it didn't already pull up that land record, and it did not. So I'm going to want to add a source. So let's come back up to the hints and find it in a hint. And here's the here it is listed in the hints. And so I'm going to click that I want to save it. And I have already compared it, but I'm going to click save again. It says that I accepted this as a photo hint, and that it's there, and it is now saved with the rest of my hints. So if I come back up to Lorenzo Dow and go to facts, let's see if it shows up on my hints or on my sources. It should be the bottom one. It's not. Okay. And this is another example of when I have not used Ancestry as much as I use Family Search. But it said it was a photo hint because it was that was the actual picture. And so here is the photo hint, and it would be, let's assume that it's this first one, and then so I want to go back to where it says add. I want to go to this word that says add. And I'm going to say that I want to upload the photo. Actually, there were two land records there, and I need to check that second one and make sure that it is there. Choose the files that I want to upload, and is it just going to pull it up for me? It's not. So I need to figure out how to get that back into this place on Ancestry. Now, we'll follow through with that one later, okay? But let's come up here to where it says that the internet address of this record. And here is the internet address of this record on Ancestry. So now I can come to where this person to where Lorenzo Dow is on Family Search, and I can go to Sources, and I can say add a source, add new source, and I can enter the date that was 1830. Was it 8?
Yeah.
And the source title was a land patent from the government land record, land office, granting land in Jasper County, Illinois. Then the web page address, I click on that, and because when I was opened it there in Ancestry, and I probably forgot to say this, I clicked on Control and on C at the same time, which copied that address. So now if I come down here and I do Control and V at the same time, you know something? I didn't, because it did something else that I recently had copied. So I better erase that one and go back to my Lorenzo Dow Wade. And this time I'll remember to do the Control C. And now I go back to Family Search, and this time I'll do the Control V, and it will put that picture of that family record. Where is the land record found? I found it on Ancestry, in Gallery for Lorenzo Dow Wade. However, I happen to know that the original is found in the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, Record Office of the United States, indicating when and where Lorenzo Dow Wade bought land in Jasper County, Illinois. Now, my mind says, I wonder where that land is. So I'm going to take my notebook and I'm going to write down a question mark for myself, and I'm going to put what does the map look like that shows this land that Lorenzo Dow got from the land office? Because at a later point, when I'm past the easy picking fruit, I'm going to want to do that and see what else I can learn about the specific land that he bought. It's interesting to know that, having done this before, this land is in the middle of town, and I think he subdivides it later. I think he was thinking smart when he first moved to town and got this land. He farmed it at first, and then later he sold it. And then he goes to the land office and gets more. Describe the record. I think that I am going to do a Control C and put that same information in describing the record notes. And why to attach it? It says, I'm going to put verifies that Lorenzo Dow Wade was in Jasper County, Illinois in 1838. And then, just to make sure that we give more information, Family Search gives us this other option of clicking on other information that's in this source. His name is there, but not his burial, his sex or his death. Now, so I'm going to click Save. Now, one thing that this is going to make me kind of sad of is, wouldn't it be nice if the government land record listed the wives' names and let it be a joint ownership? But they didn't. They hadn't gotten around to that yet. So now I have one more source in Family Search and one less hint in Ancestry. Now I go to the next hint in Ancestry. And I'm going to work through, now it's going to list me some Missouri marriage records, and then it's going to start census records. And I'm going to want to go through these one by one and add them. Now, here's an interesting census. The United States made a census every 10 years on the 10s. So like 1800, 1820, 1810, 1820, 1830, and so on. But here is a state collection census, and because it says residents, that this was taken in 1835 in Jasper, Illinois, why do you think that they would have taken a census in 1835 when they already took one in 1830 and they plan to take another one in 1840? Anybody have an idea on that that's willing to unmute themselves and tell it? It's because Ohio wants to be a state. And in order to prove to the federal government that they have enough people here to be a state, they took a census between the two others. And so this often has interesting information. Hi, Diane.
I was going to say that it probably would have to do with population schedules.
Yes, exactly. To prove the amount of population. And so I am going to want to look there. Let's try this quick compare feature. Okay, so with the click compare feature, I'm going to do review. And now over here on the right-hand side, it is going to say, these are the steps of this record. And it tells me where in Ancestry, it gives me the address of where in Ancestry this record is kept. And then as I look further down, let's compare details. And it says that the person in just the record was L.D. Wade, but I think maybe it's Lorenzo Dow Wade. And that I didn't have down in my tree that in 1835 he was living in Jasper County. So this would be new information. Then it lists on my side of this little panel what else I know about him, and it is not giving me any other information. But it's saying, would I like to save this information to my tree? And because I have studied it out, even more than I'm doing in this quick minute, I'm going to say yes. And now I'm going to say save to tree. And now my tree on Ancestry for Lorenzo Dow Wade is going to say that in 1835, he lived in Jasper County. So that's going to tell me a couple of things. Number one, that he lived in Jasper County before he bought land. And I would have to review that and see if it took him that many years to buy land, or if it was because maybe he was living on a relative's land, or if maybe the federal government hadn't passed that law yet. So I kind of need to review that on my own. But that was a good hint. Now I want to review this record. So I'm going to click on this page and click on it, and it's going to pull up on the whole big screen what the census looked like in 1835 in Jasper County, Illinois. And gee, doesn't it look a whole lot different than it does in the federal censuses? But so let me just look down and see if I can find Lorenzo Dow Wade. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. So because I didn't want to do that, I'm going to click over here on the minus sign and bring it back down to a smaller words. Now, I haven't lately looked at this page. So if you see Lorenzo Dow or LD Wade quicker than I do, will you whoops. Will you tell me when we get to that part of the page? And okay, click on it over here. When we see his name. Because I am going to be real curious to see if he lives next door to anybody else named Wade. There he is. You see him here on this list? And it says LD Wade. And does he live next to anybody else whose last name is Wade? I didn't see it. Up here is an E Wood, but I don't think that's Wade. Okay, now I wonder what these other numbers mean. I don't remember that. Okay, I am going to have to go back through the very first page of this census to see what these numbers mean here at the edge. Now it says by his name 8. I don't think he had 8 people in his family, but so I'm going to want to do that, aren't I, to look at that. I also, if I'm going to start keeping all of these things in my file cabinet, then I'm going to want to print it out. People that are more digital than I am are just going to make sure that they have it attached well to his page in Family Search so that they can pull it up and look at it from there. Maybe by taking a copy of this page and putting it under Documents under Memories. Now, this is going to give me some ideas of other things I'm going to want to write on my list. I'm going to want to write on my list to go to the 1835 Iowa State. Okay, I'm wrong. This is not Jasper County. This is Iowa. Oh, I need to check on that one. So that's one of the things I need to write down to check on it. But I want to go back to this collection and do a search in this collection for everybody else with the last name of Wade and see if I recognize any of them. I'm also going to want to do a name by name list of anybody in this census record who has the last name of Van Dyke. Because I kind of in the back of my mind have a theory that wherever Lorenzo Dow Wade lived in 1830 or 1835, that some of those same people are going to be with him in Jasper County, Illinois in 1840. And so I think it's highly possible that his father-in-law is going to be listed here. And maybe his father, maybe his brother. So I'm going to want to look at these other people. And especially if this number 8 ends up being how many people lived in the same house with him and he's not married yet. That means that as an unmarried man, he already owns land and maybe other people in his family live with him. So I'm going to want to collect those clues. So that is something I'm going to do in my low-lying fruit. Okay, then I'm going to come back again to him. I think if I click this one here, I won't go back to the tree, but instead I'll just go back to his page. Now I have 12 more hints, and I am going to want to go through all the rest of these 12 hints and look for them. Now I could have probably found these same 12 hints by saying, oh, I think I better look at land records. Oh, I think I better look at census records. Oh, I think I better look at marriage records. Oh, I think I better look at death records. Oh, I think I better look at find a grave. But by clicking on the hints, I can let the computer suggest to me that those are places I ought to look, and have the computer already have them opened up. If I do it myself, I have to go to the search button, and I have to fill in the template, and I have to figure out the smartest way to make the template give me the right information. So for low-lying fruit, I'm going to start on hints. So that is step one in low-lying, or in searching with low-lying hints. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is, either by using Family Search or Ancestry, depending on which I am most comfortable in, I am going to check, and I'm going to say to myself, Lorenzo Dow was born in 1810. So he might be in the 1810 census if I can figure out who his father is. But he should be in the 1820 census, he's still going to be a kid. But in the 1830 census, he might be there. In 1840 census, he might be there. 1850 census, he's going to be there listing his children. 1860 census, maybe he's still alive. 1870 census. I am going to find him in every one of those censuses, and I am either going to print them out so that I can make notes on the paper and really look for the puzzle pieces and clues, or else I'm going to have a brain that looks just as good in the digital format on the screen and can make those same notes. But I definitely am going to do that. As I was doing that on a different case last week, I knew in that particular case that Araminta Michael had married John Ferry. But what really surprised me as I was looking her up in all of these censuses is I found in the census where she was 17 years old, the house next door to her is lived in by John Ferry and his wife Catherine and their baby. And 10 years later, she's the wife and the baby is still there. So it suggests that the mother died and John Ferry married his neighbor girl. So that is one of the clues that I got by looking at the actual page in the census and paying attention to what I was seeing. So that pretty much gives me a clue that John Ferry's first wife needs her temple work done. And that baby needs to be sealed to his mother and not to Sarepta Michael. So that is how we use our brain when we're looking at records and doing family history. So that would be then the next step for low-lying fruit is to check at every census. And between Ancestry and Family Search, the indexes for censuses are pretty good. So that would be the next thing. Now, my next step in low-lying fruit would be going to find a grave. Now, when I went to find a grave and looked for Lorenzo Dow Wade, I did not find him. And I think that I need to do that again and look further. But I do know where his daughter is buried. His daughter's name was Lily, sometimes called Liltra, and her maiden name then was Wade, and her last name is Michael. And I know that she died New Year's Day, 1870, and she's buried in Warrensburg, Missouri. Warrensburg, Johnson County, Missouri. And let's do a search. It didn't find her. Let's try a cemetery search for Warrensburg, Missouri. So I'm going to do a search for all the cemeteries in Johnson County, Missouri. And I am thinking that the cemetery she's buried in is either on Gay Street, or else it is named Gay Cemetery. But that's just what my mind is telling me. I do not think that the search engine on Find a Grave is a very good search engine. Sunset Hill Cemetery. I think that's going to be the right one. So now it says search for memorials in Sunset Hill Cemetery. So I'm going to ones with the last name of Michael, because her name when she died was Michael. And I'm going to do search, and maybe it will pull up some additional Michaels for me. Oh, this is interesting. Here is Lily, or Lily A. Wade Michael. Now see, that's what we searched for, but it didn't find it. And it tells me her death date, the 1st of January, 1870. And it gives me Nancy Stevenson Michael, who, interestingly enough, died within a year of when her husband got home from the Civil War. Why would somebody die within a year of when their husband gets home from the Civil War? Childbirth. Okay. And here is her husband. This tells me a biography of her husband. This tells me a picture of her husband. This tells me all of her husband's parents, siblings, half-siblings, spouses, and children. And gives me the tombstone. On the tombstone, it tells me what unit he was in the Civil War, so I can do a military history of him. Isn't that interesting? Now let me go back to her, because I can just click here on her name, and it will take me back to her memorial. And here is what her tombstone looked like. We went to visit this cemetery, and the nice guy that lived at the cemetery, who was the cemetery sexton, told us that where in the cemetery her grave was, and we went over and found it, and it was laying down on the ground. And was laying down on the ground. This is not enlarging it for me. So Control Plus usually makes something bigger. I almost think Control Plus is making this smaller. In a different view, if you look
view original, Nancy, clicked in the corner where it says view original. If you click that, it makes it bigger, and then you can
down here. Beautiful. Well, a slightly bigger.
Well, but now you can make it bigger.
Oh, now I can do the Control Plus?
Yeah.
Aha. So it took a little bit of work for us to
Wow.
sort through all of this picture, but we were able to do it. One of the things that we did was we went over to the local hardware store and bought tissue paper, and we brought the tissue paper back to the cemetery and laid it against the tombstone and rubbed over it with a crayon, and then we could read it. Then the next time we were there, my husband poured some cement underneath here, and we wrote on the cement the same information that had been on the tombstone.
Oh, cool.
My husband's asking a question. What are you asking? Can I see her husband's? So my husband says, what does it say about her in the data part of the screen? It gives us her birth date, her death date, where she was buried. It tells us that there actually are 3 photos. We can look at the other 2 and see if they're any better. Here's the base of the stone after we had rewritten the information, and a picture of her that I had happened to have in my record supply. Now, in this case, I'm not going to learn anything, but if I clicked under View Source, I could find out who made this in the first place, and if it was somebody that wasn't me, I could write them a message through Find a Grave and see if they knew anything more. But Find a Grave is wonderful because it has this information and the information about her. This tells who her parents are. It tells when she married, when she died. She died 9 months after she married. Why do you think she died? She died in childbirth, leaving a brand new baby. And some of you have heard my stories before and know that. William S. Michael, her husband, married 3 times, had half a dozen children. This newborn baby whose mother left him is the only one that lived to have children of his own. If it wouldn't have been for this lady having her baby that I'm descended from, I wouldn't have this grandfather. So I have always felt particularly attached to this grandmother. So I would go ahead as one of my low-lying fruits and look up Lily Wade Michael. I would look up Lorenzo Dow Michael, and I did that and didn't find him. So now I'm saying, then where is he baptized? Where is he buried? I also would look up any Wades in Jasper County, Illinois, and in the adjoining counties in Illinois. And I would also look up Van Dykes in adjoining counties in Illinois. That shows you how much I have come to rely on Find a Grave as I have done my research. Find a Grave is not an original source. We would not give it as much credence as we would give a birth certificate or a marriage certificate, but it can sure fill in empty spots. In my Van Dyke family, there were 2 Van Dyke people that lived in Illinois in the very early days, and I looked them both up in Find a Grave. One of them was not there, but there were others that said they were his children. And then there was one that said, when this person died, his widow took all of the children and moved to such and such place. Well, since I knew I was descended from the Van Dykes that were in Jasper County, Illinois, I knew I was not descended from the lady who, as a widow, took all of her children and moved away. So I got a very, very big hint as I looked at that Find a Grave memorial. So I would say then that the main steps in looking up low-lying fruit is find them in Find a Grave and Ancestry, and familiarize yourself with what's in the information on those 2. Look at hints in Ancestry and Find a Grave and Family Search, and add the hints that are in Family Search to Ancestry, and add the hints that you find in Ancestry once you've proven them to Family Search. And then I would look at census records and Find a Grave. And I'm going to call that low-lying fruit, but you would be surprised at how often that almost completes the picture. And by the way, Find a Grave is indexed very well. And so we often get hints to Find a Grave in Family Search. Okay, have I made you think of anything, or do you have any questions?
It's interesting to me that your ancestors are in Illinois, about 120 miles away from my ancestors who are in Illinois.
Very interesting. Maybe that's partly because Illinois was frontier and they were moving west. What counties or what cities were your ancestors in?
Springfield, Peoria.
Okay, and Peoria is in, oh, I started to say it's in Jasper County. Peoria, LDS mission in Peoria includes Jasper County. But
Wow.
they are not in the same county. There's lots of other little things we're going to do. We're going to do a county history, a little bit of each of these counties that these people are in, and find out a little bit about, was the county formed from another county? Are we going to maybe need to look for records of an earlier county and that kind of thing? But Diane,
I find that
go ahead.
I find that the Red Book is a really good source of information.
Very, very good. When we
Steve,
don't have the
Nancy?
Red Book handy, we can look in the wiki of Family Search.
Nancy, can I just say one thing? Because I just
Yeah.
noticed that Brother Tanner's here and Brother Jones are here.
Oh, then it's time
we
to
need
say
to let them
goodbye,
know.
isn't it?
We need to let them know that we're ending and we'll be ready for our meeting in just a couple minutes.
So if nobody else has another comment, we'll have the closing prayer. Diane, would you say our closing prayer today?
Father in heaven, we are so thankful to be engaged in this work and being able to help those on the other side, which also helps those of us on this side. We're thankful for Nancy and for the time that she spends in preparing her lesson and then giving it, and for those who attend and who are eager to learn. Please help us this week that we may be able to put in practice things that have been learned and be able to also further this work to help both people on both sides of the veil, and that we will have happy experiences